As the old saying goes, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. Another one is, you cannot defeat the enemy if you cannot identify them. In our first program, we looked at the history of the Frankfurt School and how they have infiltrated America with their cultural Marxism. We also learned that they weaponized psychology, set out to destroy the credibility of conservative male leaders, and to tear down our national history, heritage, and iconic American heroes. In part 2 of this documovie, we will learn how the cultural Marxists have sought to change the behavior of Americans. How? By using revisionist history, fake news, peer pressure, fear, and anxiety. And to what end? To diminish the ability of Americans to use proper reason, logic, and context. What you are about to be briefed on is very important history that directly reveals what is happening in America and to Americans today. Only after understanding how America got where she is today will we be able to understand what lies ahead and how to respond. Yes, we're going to look at how America is under siege from Sharia, universal health care, an immigration crisis, an economic crisis, a new Cold War, the fake science of man-made global warming as an apocalyptic event. We will also examine how America's churches are under siege, our parental authority, as well as our military, our critical infrastructure, and how our national sovereignty is under siege by globalists. But first, we must understand the mind siege. Part 2 of Siege, the documovie, begins right now.
This is a Brannon, Howse, and WVW Broadcast Network documovie, Siege, the clear and present dangers pushing America to the brink of a Marxist Islamic revolution, civil war, World War III, and globalism. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
Americans have deliberately been subjected to a mind siege, or mind attack. This psychological campaign of propaganda has been designed to keep Americans from being able to think and reason within the context of truth and reality. To reach this goal, Americans have been subjected to a systematic program of contradicting information, fake news, chaos, violent movies, horror, and shock that would yield the emotions, desensitization, and mental disturbance similar to that of a man who had experienced the horrors of war. The goal of this psychological campaign is to get Americans to let go of the worldview and values that are not in accord with the cultural Marxists carrying out the psychological campaign. In other words, the goal is to get Americans to let go of the values and beliefs that support our free society and individual rights. But how and why would Americans willingly reject the Judeo-Christian worldview and values that have made America the most prosperous and free society in the world with the longest-running constitutional republic ever known to man? The answer is really rather simple. Americans have been conditioned to base their beliefs and values upon feelings, pragmatism, group consensus, and the so-called cultural norms of society that keep them from being criticized, marginalized, stigmatized, and ultimately ostracized from society by being labeled. Through the psychological weaponizing of peer pressure or group consensus, Americans have been subjected to an environment that deliberately creates anxiety and stress at many levels in many different manifestations. Social media has played right into this agenda by conditioning many Americans into believing that their value or worth is based upon how many likes they receive or how many followers they have. For many, expressing or supporting anything that could damage their social media standing is avoided. Thereby, their freedom of thought and freedom of speech is limited by peer pressure. They self-censor. If defending the free market capitalistic system results in Americans being labeled as a defender of racism and a culture of white privilege, then Americans begin to self-censor, and fewer Americans speak up in defense of the free market system. If supporting strict border security in order to protect America from terrorism results in Americans being labeled as Islamophobic, then fewer Americans will speak up in defense of common sense border security. If you understand dialectical materialism, you will better understand how the cultural Marxists have infiltrated and why they have infiltrated the power centers of education and media, government and religion. You'll understand that this is a war. It's a war on the morality of our nation. It's a manufactured revolution that's being carried out through the destruction of the very foundation of our form of government, the Judeo-Christian worldview, the free market system that has sustained our private property rights. Unless we keep speaking forth truth and exposing their evil deeds and schemes, the cultural Marxists will accomplish their goal of overthrowing America through their long march through the institutions. These are institutions that have made America a great and free nation. These are the institutions that have supported America as the land of the free and the home of the brave. The question is, will you join the group consensus? Will you merge Marxism and Christianity? Will you be part of the dialectical deception? Or will you be an American that refuses to compromise by joining the group consensus? America is at a very crucial hour, and the next few months and years will determine whether America remains a free nation that respects the rule of law, religious freedom, economic freedom, private property, the Second Amendment, and freedom of speech. If these freedoms are eliminated, then conservative Americans will have a very difficult life ahead as the Marxists and Islamists openly persecute Christians and conservatives, not to mention the Jews. If more Americans come to understand the issues presented in this documovie and act upon what they have learned, and they share this information with others, well, then perhaps we can preserve our liberties and freedoms for a few more years. As the saying goes, all it takes for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. What will you do with the truth that has been put before you today? Thank you for watching Part 2 of Siege, the documovie.